Welcome students, welcome to the lecture number 1 of chapter Getting Started with Python. Okay, so as today we are starting with the Python chapter, so the first thing that I want to tell you about Python is that Python is basically a programming language. Okay, so the first question that arises in my mind is that what is the need to learn the programming language? Okay, as I told you that Python is basically a programming language. So the first question is that why it is required to learn the programming language? What is the need to learn the programming language? Okay, so first this thing must be clear in our mind. So let's see, why do we need a programming language? So you know that we have a machine named as computer. Okay, and this machine consists of a major part that is a hardware, right? And another part that is software. So basically the computer consists of these two things, hardware and the software, right? So what is basically a hardware? Hardware is basically the physical components of computer system. Okay, so like keyboard, mouse, monitor, speaker, these all are basically the hardware because these are the physical components that we can see and touch, right? So all the physical components of the computer system is known as hardware. Now if we talk about software, so what is basically a software? Software is a collection of programs. Okay, you know that for running each and everything in the system we require a software for it. Okay, let me explain you with an example. You know that there is a device named as mouse. Okay, let me just increase its size. So we have a device in our system named as mouse, and you know that why this mouse work? Because there is a mouse software available in our system. Okay, and this software consists of many files. One file contains, suppose, the instruction to deal with the mouse pointer. Okay, one file contains the instruction to deal with the mouse primary button, which we call as generally left button. Okay, you know na, that when you use the mouse primary button, then when you point, when a pointer points to a particular object and you press single click of the primary button, then the item gets selected, and when you double click on that item, then the item gets open. So that is basically called as the primary button. So all the functionality that when a person single click the primary button, then what will happen, and when the person double clicks the primary button, then what procedure will be happen, all these things are information is stored in this mouse primary button file. Okay, and there is one more file like mouse secondary button file. Okay, and suppose there is one more file like mouse scroll. Okay, so you know that in every mouse there is a scroll button also. So there is a mouse scroll file also. So basically the mouse software is basically the collection of all these files, right? So these files we call as programs. Okay, so we can say that this is a mouse file, mouse pointer movement program. There is another program which controls the mouse primary buttons instructions, and there is one more program which controls the mouse secondary button instructions. There is one more program which handle the functionality of the mouse scroll button. Okay, so there are suppose these are the 4 programs available in the mouse software. Okay, so by looking at this example we can say that software is basically a collection of programs. Okay, so the collection of all these programs will become the mouse software. The software, if we define a software, then software is a collection of programs that are collectively used to perform a particular task. Okay, as you see in this case, the collection of all these programs are basically used to handle the functionality of the device named as mouse. So just note down this definition of software, that software is a collection of programs that are collectively used to perform a particular task. Okay, and what is basically a program? We already noted down the definition of software. Okay, but now we want to know that what is the definition of a program. So program is nothing else but the collection of instruction, because you know, in this mouse pointer program, what we have in this program contains all the instructions which must be followed to handle the operations of the mouse pointer, and by using all those instructions the system handles all the working of the mouse pointer with that. Okay, so what is a program? Program is basically a collection of instructions which provides a step-by-step procedure for performing a task. Okay, so what is a program? Program is nothing else but a collection of instructions which provides a step-by-step procedure for performing a task, right? So after knowing about these definition, let's come to our PPT once again. So we are in this point that software is basically a collection of programs. Okay, so what is a program? Program is basically a collection of instructions. Okay, and in order to write these instructions we need some language, and the language which is used to write this instruction is called as programming language. Okay, so as you know that by this diagram you can understand that what is a software? Software is basically a collection of programs. And what is a program? Program is basically a collection of instructions, and for writing the instruction we need a language, and that language is called as programming language. Okay, so now you can see one thing, that if we know the programming language, then with the help of that language what we can do, we can write the instructions for performing a particular work, and with the help of and with the collection of all these instructions a program is developed, and we write multiple programs for different tasks. Then the collection of these programs becomes the software, and when there is a software only then the work is performed in the computer. So you can understand that if we want to run any device in our computer, or if we want to run any application in our computer, then a software is required for it. Okay, if you want to run MS Office in your computer, then obviously you have to purchase the MS Office software from somewhere. If you want to do some photo editing work, then you have to purchase a photo editing software like Photoshop or GIMP and install in your system. Suppose if you want to run set up a printer with your system, then obviously after attaching the printer you have to first install the software of the printer, then only your system can interact with the printer. So it means that whether you want to run any device in your computer or you want to run any application in your computer, so what you require in all those cases, you need a software for it. So it means without software you can't run anything in the system. And for developing the software, we know that only programming language is responsible. So okay, so I hope you cleared that the programming language is very useful, because without the use of programming language no software can be developed. Okay, and if there is no software, then nothing will run in the system or in your mobile. Okay, so basically the programming language is used to develop softwares, right? So this is basically the use of a programming language. So in our session we are learning about a programming language named as Python. So let us know a little bit history about the Python, that this Python language is basically an open source, object oriented and high level language, programming language. Okay, so we came to know about the 3 points about the Python, that it is an open source, second thing it is an object oriented, and the third one is high level programming language. Okay, and this language is basically developed by a programmer named as Guido Van Rossum, and he is the person who developed the Python programming language in 1991. Okay, so over here I have written some points regarding the Python, that it is an open source, right? So first of all, let me clarify what is an open source. Open source means the software whose source code is available to all the users. Okay, suppose if you take the example of MS Office is not open source. You can purchase the software, but you can't get the source code of that software. Okay, but Python programming language is basically an open source code language, so that it means that you can download the source code of that language and you can also modify it and redistribute the code. Okay, so Python is open source, it means its source code is freely available in the internet. Object oriented, we will discuss it later on. And the high level programming language, you know, when we talk about the generation of programming language, then in the first generation of programming language, the machine language is used to write the programs. Means the language of 0 and 1 is used to write the programs. Okay, in the second generation of language, a language comes named as assembly language, and that language is basically used to write the programs. Okay, and after that there comes the third generation of language, which is also called as the high level language. Okay, so the Python belongs to the third generation of language, and it belongs to the third generation of language. That's why it is also called as the high level language. Okay, so Python is open source. Why? Because its source code is freely available in the internet. Okay, and the next thing is why Python is called high level language, because it comes under the category of third generation of language, and all the languages which are under the third generation of language, they are also called as the high level language. Okay, and what is the meaning of high level language, we will discuss it later on, because over here we are just describing about a short history of the Python, right? So after knowing about the short history of Python, that it is developed by Guido Van Rossum in 1991, right? So let's discuss about some features of Python. So the first feature of Python which we are going to discuss is that it's free and open source, right? Now, as I already told you that Python is free and open source. Free means, suppose if you want to download the software of Python because you want to do programming in Python, so obviously you need the software of Python. Okay, so you don't have to purchase the Python software from anywhere. No, you can simply go to its website, that is www.python.org, and you can freely download the Python latest version software from that website. Okay, and also it is open source. It means that from that website you can also obtain the source code. So after getting the source code, you can also learn that how this language was developed, what is the code behind developing this language also. So the first feature is that free and open source. It means Python is a language is freely available. You can easily download it from the website, and its source code is also available from there. That's why it is called as open source. I hope it is understood by you that open source means it's the source code of the language is freely available to the user. Now the second is cross-platform language. Now first thing, what is the meaning of this platform? What does this word platform represents? Platform represents the operating system. Okay, as you have seen that in many computers there is Windows operating system. I think that you have heard about Linux operating system. There is a Mac operating system. So there are variety of operating systems. So why it is called as cross-platform language? So let me explain you why it is called as a cross-platform language first. Suppose I have a window operating system in my computer, okay, and I develop a Python program in that computer. After developing that code, I run it and I saw the result is absolutely correct. So my Python program is basically completed in that machine, okay. Now I copy my program from that machine, and then I go to my friend home, and because I want to just run that program in front of him also. So when I took that program and I copy that program in his machine, but suppose in his machine there is a Linux operating system over there, okay. When I develop the code in my office machine, in my office computer there is Windows operating system, okay. So when I develop that code, the operating system which is present in that machine is Windows operating system. So it means my code is developed on the platform of Windows operating system. Now I copy that code, and then I copy that code to another machine in which there is Linux operating system, or we can say that in the machine which has the Linux platform of Linux operating system. Now when I try to run that code on that machine, the code will run absolutely perfectly, okay. The code will run perfectly all right. Why? Because Python language supports cross platform. So it means if you develop a Python code in any kind of operating system, you can run in any type of operating system, okay. So it doesn't matter that whether you develop the Python code is Windows or in Linux operating system. No, you can develop the Python code in any operating system, and then you can copy that and run in any machine having any type of operating system. So the second point is that the Python can run on variety of platforms like Windows, Linux, Mac, like this. That's why platform is also that's why Python is also called as portable language, or we can also call it as platform independent language. As I told you that platform basically refers to the operating system. So why it is called as platform independent? Because it doesn't matter whether the Python code is developed in any kind of operating system. We can run that code in any system which has any type of operating system. It does not depend on the operating system, okay. So that's why we call it as cross platform language, okay. So it's our first class, so I'm just ending this lecture from here right now, okay. So I'll just give a summary of the today's lecture. That in our today's lecture we learned about why we need the programming language, because programming language is basically used to develop the softwares, and without the programming language a software can't be developed. So that's why programming language is required. In our course we are going to learn about the Python programming language. This Python programming language is developed by Guido Van Rossum in 1991, okay. And this Python programming language has many features with it, right. The first features which we have discussed is that it is free and open source. It means the Python software can be freely downloaded from www.python.org website, and if you want you can also download the source code of the Python, that is the coding behind the Python programming language, okay. You can also download that, and you can also make changes in that, okay. That's why we call it as open source, because its source code is openly available to us. And the last thing is, the next point which we have learned today is that cross platform language. So it means that as Python is basically a cross platform language, so it means a Python program can be run on any system having any type of operating system. So it does not depend on the type of operating system, that is, it is platform independent, okay. So if I created a Python program in one type of operating system, okay, then I can also run that program in any other machine having any type of operating system. So it is not platform dependent, it is platform independent. It means it doesn't matter whether any type of operating system is present, the Python program will run successfully in all types of machine having any type of operating system. So I hope it is clear to you. So that's all for today. Have a nice day. We will meet tomorrow with some more features of Python. Right? Bye bye.